Hey guys, Andrew here. Just wanted to give you a quick thanks for listening to this podcast. This is all our first time really doing anything like this, and we really appreciate that anyone, and I mean anyone, would take the time out of their day to listen to us. It gets a little rough in the beginning. We spend a little too much time meandering, not really talking too much. We try to throw in a couple of fun questions in there, and I thought it turned out pretty well, but it's a little long in the tooth at the beginning. So if you want to go ahead and jump about 17 minutes ahead, that's when we really start talking about Mesopotamia and the history about Mesopotamia, where I think the podcast really starts to shine. So if you're interested in learning a little about me, Levi, and Matthew, go ahead and just keep listening like normal. If you want to just jump in and get right to it, go ahead and skip about 17 minutes in. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And yeah, enjoy our show. Welcome, everybody, to the inaugural first episode of Doomed to Repeat, a history podcast. That is the full title because I started this, I came up with this idea about 2 weeks ago, and then I just found out today that there's already a podcast called Doomed to Repeat. They posted 10 episodes back in 2017, and haven't heard from them since. But we're not thieves over here, so we're going to change our name to Doomed to Repeat, a history podcast. I'm here with my co-hostess, Matthew and Levi. If you guys want to say hello.
Hello.
Buongiorno.
All right. Levi was the first one saying hello, and Matthew was the buongiorno, whatever language that is. I think it's like Caribbean or something. The little rundown of what this podcast is all about. Three friends get together once a week, and we're just going to talk about random points in history. Should be fun, lots of laughs, maybe some tears, little blood, but it should be okay. I have a little rundown of the show right here, and our first question is, who are we? Pretty straightforward. And if we want to start, Levi, you want to start with who you are?
Who am I? Hi, my name is Levi. I am an undergrad, and I am a senior at the moment. And that's really all there is to
All
say
right.
currently.
That's all Levi is. He's not even a person. He is just an undergrad. Because as everyone knows, when you're in college, you get stripped of all your rights. Matthew, you want to go ahead and do your little introduction too?
Okay. So I'm Matthew. I'm Andrew's brother. I am currently struggling right now with the Rona in classes, all online. It really sucks. I fucking love video games, and I hope we get to swear on this because I'm probably gonna let loose a couple of times.
Yes, you are allowed to
Fuck
swear.
yeah.
This will be explicit. And just a little, just to do a little clarification there, he does not have coronavirus. He just hates it.
I mean, I did have
Just
it
to
though.
make that clear. Oh, you
Yeah,
did?
back in March.
How was that?
I mean, it was like having the normal flu. It was for me. It was and done.
Oh well, that's kind of lame. I was hoping that it would be like an alien, like a symbiote growing inside your
Well, you
stomach.
probably would have came to the hospital if it was that bad, Andrew.
That would have been kind of cool. I would have enjoyed that a lot. Anyways, I am your host, Andrew. As Matthew said, I'm his brother. Levi, he's my adopted son. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm the host of this podcast. This is going to be posting on my YouTube channel, That One Andrew. You guys probably already know me. And if you don't, you'll get to know me as all these podcasts and episodes roll on out. So, guys, I hope you're ready for this week's topic, which is Mesopotamia. And I let the boys pick out this topic because I had no idea what to choose or what to talk about. They're much more into history than I am, but I've always been curious about history. So,
Yeah.
What was that little laugh there,
I
Levi?
I when we were thinking of topics, I just want to say that I threw out Mesopotamia because I feel as though that is a fairly easy one to get through first.
Yeah,
Because
and as I was reading about it, it seems like it was like it's one of the first civilizations in recorded human history.
We can debate that later on. We can debate.
We'll have to debate
We
that.
can,
At least that's what I got from reading it. But before we go into the actual topic, I have a couple questions for you guys because this is a lighthearted podcast too. First one is, what is your favorite culture slash point in time in
oh
history?
baby, Levi, I'm gonna let you go first.
My favorite culture slash favorite time of history. It is so hard to choose from because there's been many cultures and periods of time. One time period that I would say that I would love to go back to, firstly, would most likely be medieval times.
Medieval.
Medieval times have always interested me for some reason, even as a kid, and that was like one of the first subjects I really got into when I started learning history.
All right, that sounds pretty dope. I don't know much about medieval times. We'll have to make that one of the topics sometime. I only know medieval times, the show where you go there and watch the horses run around. You ever been to that?
I've heard of it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the only point. And that, and what's that one movie with the medieval times? It's got the
Cable
blonde haired
Guy,
dude.
Oh,
Cable
are you
Guy.
talking about A Knight's Tale?
Oh, a Knight's Tale. Yeah,
I think I'm talking about A Knight's Tale.
That's
Yeah,
one of my favorite movies.
I have no
yeah.
idea what Cable Guy is,
Cable Guy's
but
an old stupid movie, and they have a medieval times is in that, the show or whatever.
Is
oh,
like the
gotcha,
What the
actual
gotcha.
attraction, medieval times, is in the
yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Uh,
Oh, gotcha. Also, that one, Evil Dead, the
yeah. Evil
third
Dead,
movie, he goes
Evil Dead.
back to medieval times.
yeah,
So I
No.
guess
yeah.
I have 2 points of reference for that, but that's it. Matthew, you want to go ahead and say your favorite point in time? I'm sure I could
I
guess,
bet
but
both y'all.
we'll let you
I bet
say it.
both y'all can guess it. My favorite point in time. It's
Yeah, Levi.
it's the Roman Empire. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
Augustus on, maybe not into the 300s AD, but definitely between when Augustus gets there and when um, I think it's Aurelian takes over. Like I'd want to go to that point in time because the military, the development, the technology, and religion, actually the clash of religions, would just be a very interesting time to be in.
Oh, oh, all right, all right. Well, I am a simpleton compared to both of them. My favorite point in time is recent history, basically up from the American Revolution onward to present day. That is my favorite point in time. I
Well,
guess it's
those are
because it's so
also
relatable. It's also
very
what?
interesting. It's very interesting subjects as well.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much that happened in such a short amount of time in recent history. Like if you just take the 1800s alone and look at all the things that happened, like
Mm.
I respect older history, kind of like medieval time and stuff. But when you look at the medieval times, it's like I don't know, but 500 years, 1,000 years. It's like a really long time that it spans. And then also because I'm that guy, Japanese history, I'm also really into.
Ooh, do you mean
Been reading a lot more about the samurai and things like that and their cultures.
which is
So
still recent history too?
Mm.
Like the
Yeah.
last samurai
yeah,
died in like the 1800s.
yeah. So I'm a simpleton when it comes to that. Anything before the year like 1500, I don't know anything about. I don't know.
Hmm.
That's why we're going to talk about Mesopotamia, which was like thousands of years ago. So
Um.
I have. You need to say something?
No, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna move on to the next
Okay.
thing, unless you wanted to add something to that.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, how do you want to approach the subject of Mesopotamia? How are we going to tackle it?
All right, so we'll get into that in just a second because I have one more question before our main
Okay.
topic, and this is a tough one. So, would you rather be a farmer in Russia during the Russian Revolution, or a bead weaver during the English colonization?
Oh my god.
Which would you
That's
rather be?
bad.
Oh,
That's both bad.
oh,
Oh god.
a Russian farmer. or a
You'd
bead
rather be a
weaver?
Russian farmer?
Or no, or a bead
Yeah.
weaver? A bead weaver.
Yeah,
Would
would
it
you
be
rather be a
English?
Russian farmer in Russia during the Russian Revolution or a Native American bead weaver during the English
Native.
colonization?
I guess there's really two sides to this. For one, we have do we have a specific location for this bead weaver? Because this bead weaver could be in
Yeah, I want to know where it is.
as
He's
far as
this bead
go
weaver,
ahead.
like, you know, Plymouth Rock.
Yeah.
He's like the next door neighbor. He lives right there.
Okay, so he's on the eastern coast. He's there when the English
Yeah,
arrive
yeah.
in 16.
He takes some afternoon walks to the beach sometimes. Like he's
Okay,
right there.
he's right there. Okay,
And also the
there's
Russian farmer is like in the middle of everything too.
okay. Okay, going back to my first thing here, like I said, there's two things to this. Like we can be a Russian farmer, and no matter what, we're going to have to pick a side, right?
Yeah.
Um, let's put up a scenario here. A Red Army group comes to your farm and says, "Join the Red Army, join the Soviets, or we're going to kill you and take your farm." Next day later, a White Army group comes to you and says, "Join the White Army, support the Tsar, or we're going to kill you and take your farm."
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
Both
there's
both good decisions.
go both of these are huge decisions, or they could not approach you and just go ahead and do it anyway.
which was very
True.
likely to
True.
happen actually, to where they just wouldn't give you a choice and just take it from you.
Exactly. So let's say
And then
hypothetically they give you a choice.
I mean, I'm not a racist, so I guess I'm gonna join the Red Army, you know?
You would join the Red Army.
Not what it means at all.
Yeah. And aren't they the one that won? And the Red Army,
they
they're the ones that won anyways, right?
yes, the Red Army won over the White Army.
Yeah, so I'm gonna join the winners, obviously. Sorry guys. Like, but
Um,
you gotta
go
also
ahead.
take it from the perspective of the bead weaver. Because when the English first got there, they're pretty chill with the natives. Like they weren't going around murdering them and stuff like that. Actually, they needed the natives for help and support. So it
Mhm.
wasn't too bad of a gig there for a while. The only thing was you
No,
probably were going to get some type of English disease and die.
I'd rather. I'm just gonna
I
say my point right here. Like I'm gonna say I would rather be the Native American bead weaver than like being like 95% of Russian history.
oh definitely I would rather be the Native American bead weaver because, like you just said about the whole the English, yes, the colonists did rely on the Native Americans to hell even survive. What was it, the first or second winter there?
Yeah, something like that.
Um,
Like
and
one of the first ones.
who's to say? Because maybe my chieftain or whatever would be like, we'll make cut deals with them, but all we have to do is go attack the enemy tribe over on the other side of the river. So, and we'll get when we're going to, not only are we going to get nice shiny silver spoons and forks, we're also going to get guns out of this too.
Yeah, I mean,
So
you could make it a really good deal, and the Russian farmer. Let's be honest, he's fucked anyway to Sunday. Like he's not getting out
honestly,
of this well off at
no.
Yeah,
all. He's a farmer in Russia, um, so
In the
already
year
there. Like even
1917,
there's
ooh,
yeah. So
and he's just a farmer.
just
He's not the one who owns the land.
no,
So we could
no,
say
you're
it's
just a worker there. It's not like you're a
no.
tribes leader either. You're just either a farmer or a bead weaver in these points of history.
So
And I think we're all in agreement that we would be the bead weavers during English
I would rather
colonization.
be the bead weaver.
yeah,
I'd rather
Yeah.
weave beads than farm
100%.
in 1917 Russia.
All right. All right. That sounds good. I'll try to think of one of those like hypothetical would you rather choice things every
I mean,
episode.
I like
So
it. This one just was kind of leaning hard one way from the start. That's it. Like,
I mean, I thought you guys might be a little more interested in like farming and
Oh
stuff.
no,
Like, yeah, you're a
oh no,
farmer, but
I'm
not with our
hey,
views on Russia.
I mean, at least
no,
you're in a
I
different
felt
point in
no, I
time
felt it was
too.
very interesting.
But yeah,
Like,
But
but
you also
is
got to
that
look
you
at the
get?
point in time because if you're the farmer, you're also in the 1900s. If you're the bead weaver, you're like back in the 1500s. All you're doing is
you know
weaving
what?
beads.
I will
That's
give
it.
you that. I didn't even take into account that I would be in like the 1600s
I'm
and
just
like
taking.
no
Yeah.
technology.
I'm just taking into account what's going on and what would be best if I were to have had a family.
Ah,
You're thinking about your either native family or your farmer family. Okay, if we throw that in there,
Uh,
then yeah, probably want to be with the natives because, like I said, the English were they're chill for a while,
for a while, for a while, they were chill.
until that the certain presidents came around and they're like, you know what, get out of
don't
town.
diss my boy Andrew Jackson like that.
All right, well, we can
All
get
right,
into them
well,
later.
Yeah, that's for another time.
oh, there will be a 1800s American episode sometimes.
That's gonna be
I'm thinking for
It's gonna
this
be
show,
split up. You're gonna have to
there's
split
going to
that
be
up a bit.
some, yeah, so there's going to be some topics like this. I think Mesopotamia, we can cover all the big things in one
Hmm.
episode because a lot
This
of it
this is
is
a
unwritten history.
yeah.
No? Maybe? You think we can? I think we can hit the big points and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
no, definitely. We can definitely hit the big points from what we know now.
Yeah, but like if we go to like the Roman Empire, I'm
Ooh,
sure,
baby.
especially with Matthew, that's going to have to be
There's
like
countless,
at
there's
least
countless
two
knowledge.
parts. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's just going to be a topic by topic basis on what is or isn't going to be more than one part. But I think Mesopotamia, at least from the 4 paragraphs I read about it, I think it'll be
That's
just one
it.
episode.
That's all you read was
I,
4
It's something like
paragraphs.
that.
I think
I was
Mesopotamia is a
reading
very
a
interesting
bit.
subject.
Honestly,
Well, you guys are going to have to
yeah.
flip and educate me because I'm not sure. And you
Okay.
know what? We'll go ahead and just lead into our main topic of the show, which is Mesopotamia. Who feels more comfortable giving kind of like a rundown of what
I can give a
Mesopotamia
rundown.
is,
Yeah,
what it
I give.
was? You
Levi
want to
can
do
do it.
that?
Yeah, I
All
can
right,
give a
Levi, go ahead
quick
and just tell
thesis
us some.
statement. Well,
Give us
first
the
off,
spark notes.
I can give a quick spark notes.
Okay.
And of course, and this is probably going to be like what a lot of other people will say about it is that Mesopotamia as a nation, it was never really a nation. It was more a region, if you will, of
Mm-hmm.
mainly
Mm-hmm.
situated in what is now known as Iraq, Syria, Kuwait. And what we have here is this region where the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers kind of meet. And the meaning of Mesopotamia is that it is fertile land. So what we have here is this civilization exploding because they are farming, and what we have now, sorry, what we are seeing from that is that Mesopotamia creates not only does it have fertile land, it is creating a huge farming community. It is also creating civilization before its very own eyes. Mesopotamia is the reason why we have writing, laws, and um, an understanding of the stars.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
would be Mesopotamia would be the basis for what all other ancient cultures would come after it.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I got. That's the gist I got from reading it
Mm,
was that maybe it's not the first civilization because most historians agree that we all started out in Africa somewhere,
yeah,
somehow, however many years ago. And then as they were traveling outwards, when you do travel to the Middle East, a lot of it is desert and uninhabitable. But once you get to that region, kind of like where you're saying, what Iraq and stuff, like between the
yeah.
Tigris and Euphrates River, that was like a
Mm,
really rich region for growing crops and things like that. So people were like, "Hey, this looks good. Let's stay here." And that's where a lot of writing came from, and a lot of civilization, trading. things
Mm.
like that. What we know modern civilization to be came out of Mesopotamia. At least that's what I got from it.
Yes.
Mm.
I just want to tack on that at the beginning of this time that we're going to be looking into, we have two other civilizations that are kind of contemporaries of the Mesopotamian civilizations we'll be looking into throughout this time period that I have outlined, that I looked up. And the first one is going to be the Indus Valley civilization in India. And the other one that we'll probably be talking about a lot too is the Egyptians and maybe their
I
influence.
we yeah, we could, but I also really wanted to get into Mesopotamian cultures themselves, such as
Oh, yes.
Babylon, the Assyrians, the
Yeah.
The
the
Akkadians.
the Akkadian Empire.
Yeah, I just want to, like, I'm not going to talk in depth about the Egyptians or the Indus
Mm-hmm.
Valley. I'm probably not going to talk about the Indus Valley at all because it didn't really have a connection or like
Mm-hmm.
trade between them at that time. But the Egyptians, I'm just going to bring them up as like
Okay.
the current power structure and the base in their realm, their sphere of influence that was happening during that time.
All right. So you guys, you guys are gonna have to kind of also keep me up in the loop a little bit. My ancient history teacher kind of sucked in middle school. So at this time, when Mesopotamia was a place, these other two cultures, were they there from the beginning, or did they like come a lot later, or like when
These
exactly
cultures.
did they show up?
Um, it's all generally like around the same time when like these civilizations start going away from being nomads and being farmers.
Mm-hmm.
But there is like slight time variations between them. But like they all started making true settlements and not being nomads around the same time. They're not 100% contemporaries though.
Mm-hmm. There
Okay.
is
Okay.
a poem of Gilgamesh, and the reason why Mesopotamia was never considered a nation or country was because in the poem, the basic idea of the poem is that the city beats the country. So when
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mesopotamian these regions where these cities were growing and just exploded into bigger cities, such as Babylon, Uruk, and others,
Mm-hmm.
it would be the cities that would be the holders of this civilization. To say,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was what I was getting when I was reading that too, and I found so interesting because I don't think there were many civilizations or just regions that were like this where you had so many cities that were blowing up in population. And not only that, it's not like that they had a city and then they just never knew or never talked to the other cities. They knew that they were there and they traded with them and things like that, but they never actually like came together as one. They actually, a lot, they would fight each other and they would have like problems with each other, but they never formed an actual country with one another. And I thought that
and
was so interesting. I don't think that's ever happened.
we'll see that a lot with ancient powers until, of course, Rome comes along. But most notably, the Greeks.
Oh
The
yeah.
Greeks held on to the idea that of city states. Most notably, Rome most likely started out first as something of a
Mm-hmm.
Greek city state, although its origins are
Mm-hmm.
still out there.
Yeah.
The whole
Yeah.
Remus and Romulus legend of
We'll,
Rome.
we'll
But
talk about the
we're not talking about
Trojans and
Rome,
them later.
but we're not talking about Rome. We're talking about Mesopotamia. So what I'm saying here is that we have this region where I agree with you, Andrew, that the population just exploded, and that is why Mesopotamia is so interesting. And that in this region, populations exploded. These cities became great. There was massive structures built, temples to pray to their gods.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
These towns basically grew overnight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You want to go, Matthew?
Um, yeah. The cities that it was all these they were just settling in the fertile land. Each one they would it was usually be a sect or settlers from maybe another city that wanted their own land and didn't want to be ruled by somebody else, so they'd leave and set up their own settlement in an uncontested piece of land and start farming it. But that's when eventually over time to when we start getting towards like Babylon being a power, the Akkadian Empire. This is after thousands of years to where
Mhm.
all these little cities and settlements have now started outgrowing the borders that they originally had. So that's what has led to, what leads to the incessant warfare between the city states and them not
Yes,
getting along.
and that will follow.
Yeah.
All right.
Did
All
any
right.
of you
So
search the mythological like creation story for the
No, I do
Mesopotamians?
not know the mythological creation story for Mesopotamia.
yeah,
It's gonna sound
me
it's gonna
neither.
sound very familiar if you know a lot of like ancient creation stories, like especially the Greek creation
Does it
story.
real quick? Does it involve a flood?
Actually, the creation story doesn't, but there is a story about a flood. Like that is
Mm,
really interesting.
I listened to I heard that story as well that there was a flood. But go ahead with the mythological
Did
creation.
Okay, so
wait
go
during
ahead.
during the
Go ahead.
flood though? I have one question. Was there an old man that built a boat
No,
and
no.
went
No,
around
Just
and got two of every
Levi,
animal
do you know the reason why the
just
flood
just
happened?
so they could
just
do some
just
powwow?
just real quick. In Mesopotamian culture, they had this feeling that their gods were not very nice gods, and their gods were quite upset with them. In
Dude,
fact,
their gods were assholes.
when one Mesopotamian, and for one reason of the flood, the reason why this god sent a flood unto them was because they were playing music too loudly, and it awoke them.
Dude, I
So
love that. That's like a petty neighbor type thing. Like those bastards downstairs, they keep freaking playing their music so loud. I'm gonna throw a cocktail in there, a Molotov cocktail, because they won't shut up. Like that's the ultimate
Oh
pettiness.
my
but
god.
At least, at least in Christian, they're just like, oh, they're all sinful, they're all bad. This one's just like, oh, they're too loud. Let's
but
kill them
recent
all.
research into the climatology and whatnot of the weather of that time, it is proven that a lot of those regions flooded because of ungodly amounts of rain happened there, most
Mm-hmm.
notably in
Yeah.
the Indus region and such. So
All
that
right.
is my general understanding of why they have the flood story.
Yeah. Like the flood story, you're in these fertile plains and then like it's rainy season and they're like, "Oh, what's
Yeah.
this?"
Sometimes it just
And
floods.
they just get wiped out.
you know, the dude that was like, "Oh, the gods are angry at your loud music." He just didn't like it. It's just a dude that just he was just a grungy old man that wanted to sleep, but they're always playing their loud music, and he's like, "I'm going to take this opportunity. I'm going to be like, hey, God's pissed at you for playing your music, so you need to shut up."
I'm gonna take a
That's what
different
happened.
approach, and I'm gonna guess because like this is a little tangent, but beer has been around for about as long as civilization has been around, maybe a little bit longer. But these people playing music were probably having a few brewskis too. And where's a better place to have brewskis than down by the water with maybe a fire at night? So these people all
Yeah.
probably got like wasted and then fell asleep. And then the rains came and they all died because they were drunk partying. And the one old prude, like you said, was up there doing his normal stuff on the high ground. He's like, that's what you get for having fun. But anyways, to digress, back to the creation story, like how they understand the earth was created and heavens and their gods. So there was um, the original way that they saw it was there was this one god of salt water and another god of fresh water, which is interesting because I've never heard that before. Different what for different like salinities of water. And
Mm-hmm.
the first one is Apsu, which is of salt water, and then Chamut of fresh water. And they got together and they made the soil, they made the silt. They basically say that they made the fertile valley and all the lands. Well, then they got together and they chopped up their parent to make the mountains. Like
Oh.
this is a reoccurring theme in like mythologies, which makes me think that there's a commonality, like there's a grain of truth there somewhere to like, why is everybody chopping up their parents to make them into the earth? but they like made the breasts of their mother into the hills, the legs into the trees, and they used some leftover part to make the humans. But in this creation
Hmm.
story, the humans weren't made because God is like, oh, I want there to. The gods are like, oh, I want there to be a creation for me. I want to see like how this turns out. The reason humans were created in this Tigris and Euphrates area in Mesopotamia was because the gods wanted them to do the work that the gods didn't think they were worth doing. It wasn't worth their time to do it,
Hmm.
which is just fantastic.
I love that. So before we get any deeper into this, I just want to know, like, if we could have a just a general, like, what time period is this running through? Like,
This is
is
going from
this
nearly like I am probably shooting up here, but or maybe I'm completely wrong, but around like 7100 BC to nearly 500 BC.
Yeah.
so we're spanning almost like 6,500 years
Mm-hmm.
BC for this one area,
Yeah.
for this one region. Okay, so I guess my biggest question, well, there's two actually. One is about war, which we'll get into later because we already kind of got into that before, and we'll just kind of set it aside right now. But the other one is, out of every single thing that you've mentioned so far, there's only one thing that I really like. Oh, I've heard of that before. I know that,
Mm,
and that's Babylon. Like,
Babylon.
I've heard of Babylon and I've heard of the Babylonians, but like,
Who?
I'm sure
who
as a lot of our listeners are probably with me, I don't really know what Babylon or the Babylonians are, or like why they're significant at all. I
who
just know that they're a thing that happened and they're kind of important.
who are they and who were they? Well, for all Mesopotamian people, they were Sumerian. We see Sumerian a lot get brought up when people say Mesopotamia. So a lot of these people
Hmm.
were in a way, I think, Sumerian. I think we could say that. Um, I could be wrong. I'm not saying that I'm right at all. I want it to be known
Uh
that for
huh.
this
That's
podcast, when I do not make claims. I'm just making educated guesses.
for a lot of it. It's gonna be like,
Um,
yeah, it's like none of us are history professors or
No.
anything
No, I
like
want it to be
that.
known that we are not professors, but we have at least for me. I'm sure you have as well, Andrew. But for me and Matthew, we're avid history buffs, and
Oh yeah.
when coming
Yeah,
to this,
definitely.
we are
Hmm.
greenhorns and wanting to discuss it for other people to
Yeah,
listen.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, definitely.
But
So you
so
said
but
Sumerians.
so around like Sumerian, that we can say that that was the people. So what is Babylon? Babylon was a city in Iraq. Sorry, in what is now Iraq. Um, and Babylon would grow to become one of the wealthiest cities to have ever existed. In fact, Babylon's own wealth would be its destruction when the Persian Emperor Cyrus the Great saw his eyes upon the city and he wanted to conquer it. So
Hmm.
Babylon would be the center of wealth throughout Mesopotamia, and the Babylonians would go on to become a powerhouse, and they had a huge military force. One of their greatest emperors, who is also known in the Bible, Nebuchadnezzar, is
Yeah.
Hmm. Yep.
Nebuchadnezzar
Know who that is?
is would be probably, I think, would go down to be one of the greatest kings or emperors of the Babylonians. So that is basically who they were: the wealthy, the powerhouse that would come out of the Mesopotamian region.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So if we were saying that Mesopotamia was
If you
like
if you had to
a cell,
if you had to
you would say
mm,
that the Babylons were the
well, yeah,
mitochondria.
yeah. If you were to
They were the
if you were
powerhouse.
to go to if you were to travel back in time in Mesopotamia, and somebody said, "Hey, out of the out of the most powerful city state, which is the most powerful?" They would say Babylon.
All right, so they're the most powerful, and then also I'm sure the Persians taking it over had
Oh,
something to do with
when the
its
Persians took
historical
over,
significance
when the
too.
Persians took over Babylon, the Babylon power faded away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
All right.
late in its life, though. Like,
Yeah, it's very late.
like
That's when Mesopotamia kind of ends. That's Cyrus the Great took Babylon like 513.
yeah, it's that's
Oh,
late in
okay.
the life.
Yeah. So.
Babylon has a long
Mm.
history before that, and
Mm.
it was actually very interesting learning about, because the things that we know a lot from Mesopotamia actually is just like Babylon. Like, the reason like
Mm-hmm.
literacy was so high and the language was really developed was because of Babylon. They were using this to help track the stars, which created astrology, which
Yes.
would later become um, all the signs that the Greeks would name, like Pisces and Libra and Leo. Like,
Mm.
they would use the stars, which was an ancient calendar, basically to tell what month of the year it was.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of just history though in itself. Is that it's always the rich, wealthy places that get recorded because there's probably been thousands of different cultures and villages and civilizations throughout
Oh,
our history,
definitely.
but a lot of them either just don't make it or they're not educated enough to record their history.
Well,
So one day everyone just gets up and
Yeah.
leaves. So.
there's a big thing I want to touch upon is that for a lot of these cultures, most notably the ones that we know now of, is because one thing that really cemented this area of Mesopotamia is because these people had a written language.
Yeah.
This would be the first time that we see a civilization begin to use writing. They use the I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was like Kuni or something. This is their form of
Mm-hmm.
writing,
Cuneiform.
the cuneiform, and it was important. But a lot of the people we see the first beginnings of social class arise from the writing. So we see the educated learning how to write, but some of the slaves also learned how to write. In fact, I think a lot of their the texts that they have found from um, Mesopotamia is just a lot of trade between goats and hay. um,
That's like, could you imagine going to a Mesopotamian like historical library? It's like, oh wow, look at all this knowledge and wonder. What does this text mean? Oh, that means two goats for one
Yeah.
sheep.
yeah,
Uh,
basically.
Actually, it was
Gotcha.
so prevalent and like so common that they wouldn't have people write it out. They made like special stamps for
Hmm.
people. So when you
Yeah.
go to the
Mm-hmm.
market, you'd have all your little
Tokens.
stamps.
Yeah, tokens.
Yeah.
So tokens
Yeah.
would be the first groundwork for how they would trade and such, and then I guess we could say as the educated grew more. That's when writing completely took over.
Uh huh. Yeah. Like actual
Actual
writing and
learning
not
how to
just like
write
symbols and
symbol
stamps
took
and stuff.
took over.
I would like to
Yeah.
make a quick distinction though between this writing and what most people know as writing. This writing was only for like symbols. It wasn't an actual
Mm.
language based writing form. It didn't
It,
directly, you couldn't read it and it directly be a word. The symbols and
Yeah.
combinations would be an item or items.
and I
It was a lot like the hieroglyphics from
Kind
Egypt.
of, yes.
kind of
Kind
hieroglyphic
of.
in a way, yeah, but not too runic like ancient Germanic and Norse peoples.
Yeah.
All right. All right. That makes sense. Okay. So was there anything else that you wanted to
Um,
touch up upon that?
like I said before, we get our first. We even today we still have that idea of social class, and that really comes from Mesopotamia. Because
Mm-hmm.
this is like the this is the I would claim this is the first time we see social classes fully arrive. We have the slaves, but then we also have the poor. We have the middle class. With that,
Mm-hmm.
those would be your carpenters. Those would be your merchants, your traders. Then we have our high class, the wealthy, the kings, queens, the priests and priestesses.
Yeah.
So
And because before it was
it,
just like everyone was just kind of chilling in the tribe, and now like cities are made and jobs are made, and then you got the rich, you got the
but
poor,
but
stuff
but
like that.
before
So.
they became huge cities, we could say that these peoples lived in a state of socialism.
Uh huh.
They would create storehouses for food for the well being of the town and from the farms and such. So we could say for a long time they lived
Mm-hmm.
in a state of somewhat socialism.
Yeah. So I've said this quite a few times already, but it really seems like Mesopotamia is the first for a lot of civilization as we know it.
Yes.
They're the first for the social classes. They're the first to do like real writing. They're the first to get astrology down and stuff like that. And when I was reading, it was like a national, what do you call it, Smithsonian book that just had some like key points of Mesopotamia. And what I read was that Mesopotamia didn't really have wars per se, but there were conflicts between these city states, and it was saying that these are quote unquote the first wars ever made. Now, I mentioned that a couple days ago, and someone in this group got into a little bit tizzy
I
about
did,
that.
and I still stand by it. It's
Mhm.
it's a
Now, we
conflict,
know
not a war.
Matthew's stance. Levi, what would you say?
I would say let's look at Mesopotamia real quick. They were the first ones who built a will. A lot of people say that. What do you need?
Mm-hmm.
What? How do you make a chariot? Well, you need two wheels, right? They need a horse, of course. From a lot of ancient stone tablets I've seen, we've seen men with spears, bow and arrow, maybe a sword here or there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when the way they waged war, I have no idea of how they waged war. All I can guess that was mainly cavalry, foot soldiers, and, and chariots. That's what I can
In
see.
the in the thing that I was
And
reading,
bowmen, of
they
course.
did have some.
Bowmen were very important. Bowmen were very
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
important.
In the thing that I was reading, they had some ancient depictions, like paintings and stuff, that they found of these conflicts, and they were like the chariots, and you see the bowmen and the spearmen and stuff like that. So that's how we kind of have our idea on how these wars actually happened, because, like we said, there wasn't really written history, and there definitely wasn't like an established language, like an alphabet that we know. So they couldn't really write it all
Well,
down. We only
I
know
believe
these
that
from these paintings and tablets
well
and stuff.
There was a lot of imagery, a lot of
there was a lot of
sculpture.
imagery. I do believe well, if they have a if they can write their language down, then they have an alphabet. That's how I base my
All right.
assumption off of. Because not
Yeah, I think that
go ahead.
I just meant like the alphabet as we know
Yeah.
that like we have a C, an A, and like a T,
Mhm.
and we can make so many different words out of just those three letters. And from what I'm getting, I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this, but from what you guys are kind of saying, you can't really take three symbols and then change them around and
No,
stuff
no.
like
These
that.
symbols are to show some. These like the only way you're going to understand it is if you know what you're looking at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but with
Um,
So,
Go ahead, Matthew.
go ahead,
um,
Matthew.
but with talking about conflicts in Mesopotamia, I researched and found what they consider to be the first conflict, what you might call a war. They called it a prolonged conflict, which is not necessarily a war. I know how bad it
I mean,
sounds. I know how.
I mean, isn't that just? I mean, that's a war, right? Like a prolonged conflict.
Anyways, the first recorded conflict in Mesopotamia was between two city states, and they were fighting over vital trade routes that went to their neighbor Elam. Yes. And it happened in 2500 BC through 2350 BC.
That's a
And
long war.
yeah,
Ooh,
no,
That's
long
a lot of
conflict.
a long
That's a
conflict. That is a
long
long. Sorry, that is a long
conflict.
conflict. That is a
God,
long conflict.
trying to trip me
That's
up.
longer than most
Okay, I'm sorry.
wars.
I'm sorry. I made
Dear
a stupid little joke. I made a stupid little
God.
joke.
Nah, you're fine. You're good. But anyways,
um,
with this, the instigator was the city-state of Lagash because they were trying to extend their power to get these trade routes to become more wealthy. And
Mm-hmm.
from all the recovered artifacts so far, it seems as though the city of Lagash was the victor because it had them all victorious, standing over people, bowing, weapons at their feet,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So that's the first conflict in Mesopotamia, but that's before even the real wars get started over there because it's just incessant fighting all the time. There's like
Yeah,
literally no peace ever. But that was the
kind of like now.
first conflict. I mean,
I mean, the Middle East is no. I wouldn't call the Middle East peaceful now, but you know.
Definitely.
yeah.
But this argument of are they wars to say? How can we? What is your definition for this to have been a war, Matthew?
It would have needed more combatants, is what I was thinking that it would need. Because from what I can understand from this, it was like a couple hundred men, maybe 1,000 or so on either side in the battles. So that's not really a war, and if it's only between two people for a very small piece of land, then it's not really a war because these are city states. They're not nations. They're not countries. So it's just
All right,
it's a conflict.
but but so you're talking about like the size of all of it,
Yes.
but I would argue that there's wars throughout history. Like what's that one that lasted like 40 minutes?
What?
Like,
I
wasn't there a war that lasted like 40
I'm sure
minutes
there
long?
is.
It
I
was
think
like
I
the
know what you're
shortest
laying.
war
I think I
ever.
know what you're. Yeah.
Like I don't think the time, because in that war what happened was like they declared war, but then like the army was already there at the capital and they're like, we already got you, bitch. And then they're like, oh shit, we give up or
Was
something.
that
And
was that in more modern times? I'm gonna ask.
it wasn't like modern. It was definitely
I
like
think it's like late.
after
I think
BC.
yeah, I think
Definitely
it's
after
like late
BC.
1800s, maybe early 1900s.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that,
think
that's
like
pretty
Europe was a
modern.
thing.
That's fairly modern.
Like I don't know if it was 1800s, but I think it had to do with like the French and the German, and something like that.
French and
Around
Germans
that
always
area.
at it.
It
Always
was
at it.
it was somewhere in England or the English or
Okay.
Yeah,
Eastern
I
Europe,
just
Western Europe, not
this
Eastern,
is
Western.
you're going from like 4,000 years after, and throughout this
D-
time there's a
Okay, yeah,
progression and
but
there's like actual declarations of war. That's not really how it was back then. It'd be real
exactly, that's what I'm
skirmishes.
getting at. Is
But
that you have declarations of war now. If the same thing that happened then happened now, especially for that amount of time, even when we brought it down to 5 years, like you can have wars where only 20 people die on one side and 100
yeah,
people
but
die on the
then
other. That's still a war.
historically,
You look at America, our war against terror in the Middle East, like yeah,
okay,
America is a very big thing,
okay.
but we've lost what, like
That's
4,000
that's more
people,
of a
5,000.
philosophical war. You can't really win a war on terror. It's like when
Hmm.
Nixon declared war on hunger, but he actually won for a little while. It's a
But like,
moralistic war. It's a war of
but
good
I'm saying
feelings, like,
like,
oh, we're attacking
I'm
the
saying like
bad.
that's a technical war. I would say that this conflict, if you have a side A and you have a side B and you have an end goal, the end goal was that trade route, and this place wanted it, this place wanted it, and we're gonna fight you to the death. Like you can call it whatever you want. A conflict is more like what happens on the Indian Chinese border. Like
I
you hear once in a while, oh, some shots were fired, some people
mm,
died. I think that's a conflict, but that's not a war.
That's a
Those two places
skirmish.
aren't trying to.
skirm,
Those two places aren't trying to like take over a thing or successfully take
Oh, they
over a thing.
definitely are. I'll tell you
yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a whole different can of worms. But I would say with this one, like they could have probably gone the extra mile and destroyed the whole city state, but they didn't because they didn't care about that. They were fighting over this one trade route, and I think that that is a war. They're having a war over this one thing. Now, is it as flashy as like every other war throughout history? No, I don't think so. It probably wasn't even like they probably didn't even think about it until it actually kept happening because if you fight in this conflict, oh, we take the trade route, and then it's good for 100 years. no one's alive to even remember that they fought there, and then they come back and it's like, oh, we're gonna fight again. And they're kind of in this endless war because either A, they don't know about each other, B, they don't know that they're fighting, or they are fighting and they just don't care because, like, you come here, we're gonna kill you.
And
And I think I would classify that as a war.
Can I make a
go ahead,
quick
Levi. Yeah,
can
go
I
ahead.
make a quick addendum real quick? Is that for this podcast we don't have to reach an agreeing conclusion. Like
Oh,
Oh yeah,
definitely
definitely
not. We're
not.
probably not going
he's my
to
brother. I'm
most
not
of the
gonna
But
change
time.
his mind.
but I did want to say that although there is no agreeing conclusion, we both understand. Sorry, we all understand what the other person's point, although we may not agree with it or may completely agree with it. We can just no like just because like you nobody agrees with anybody, we can still just cut it and respect the other's perspective. Sorry, respect the other's perspective.
Yes, like I
Yeah, yeah.
understand exactly where he's coming from with this point of view on war and conflict. I just have a different idea of what war is, and I have there's going to be other things that I talk about later when it comes to the wars in Mesopotamia, that it's actual warfare, and this is more of like he said, where it's going over this long period of time, and these people might fight, somebody might take it, and then maybe a
Their
generation or two
blood is being spilt no matter
yeah,
what.
yeah, but that's
Yeah.
blood being spilled doesn't directly align to there being a war. That's what I'm saying.
No, but I think if you took this civilization, right, exactly how it is, but you throw in a coherent language, say they knew English for whatever reason, they have the whole English alphabet, they understand communication as we do today. I think if you took that and threw it in there, a declaration of war would have been made. If that was like a thing that like they knew about and that like, oh, this is how this works and stuff like that. I think they're just so primitive still back then that they didn't think about like declaring a war even though they were in one. You know what I mean?
I think
That
in a
might
way, I think in a way, I see what you're saying. My opinion on this is that I could see Matthew's point. Like, yes, these are prolonged conflicts, and not a whole lot of people are dying. Like, people are dying over, it, but it's not like it's
Well,
not
that we know.
that we know, and not like it's not like like who are these? Do we know who both of these cities were?
yes.
Uh,
It was Lagash and Uma, two prominent cities.
So let's say Uma sends has 20,000 has an army of 20,000. And let's say Uma has the same amount of four. They both have an army of 20,000, and they go to this trade route and they duke it out, and it only takes one battle. Whoever fights that battle is going to win. That's a war.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah,
let's put it like sure it's only one battle, but that's a war because
yeah,
twenty
definitely.
thousand guys are either going to die, or going to going to go MIA or going to surrender, which I would not surrender in ancient times.
oh yeah, no, you do not want to surrender to any Assyrians, Sumerians, or Akkadians. It's just bad. You just don't want to fight with them at
Okay.
all.
but
Okay. So that is a war. But so take that what you just
mhm,
said, now cut the population down.
mhm.
Because 20,000 right now, if you
That
look
would
at
be a
every
large army.
army,
That would be a huge army for that
oh,
time.
Oh yeah,
definitely. If you look at any army throughout history, I think even modern, like right now, look at the armies that we have, your military strength compared to your total population strength is always like a
but it
fraction.
wasn't always
Like
like
it's less.
that.
I would say real quick that Mesopotamia had a lot of people living in it. It had a lot of people living in
Well,
these city
yeah,
states. I just want to make
yeah. But each city state, you got to
yeah.
imagine like they weren't even close to a million people in a
Hmm.
city,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like these cities were small. Like they were
they were
cities,
they're
yes, but
huge
it
in
was
what they had. I would say they had
exactly,
awesome
yeah.
temples to their god, like huge royal palaces. All yeah.
So I think the only thing we can do is we have to compare this to another culture that was around during the time, which I think would be Egypt.
Mm.
And we'd have to look at what was Egypt's. Do we know, like off the top of our head, how big the army in Egypt was?
Well, it depended who the pharaoh was really, and
Yeah.
who was the
Like
role.
around the time of
This would have been
Mesopotamia, like
during
what
the
was?
Old Kingdom, and during this time there was actually a full-blown war going out in Egypt between the Kingdom and the Upper Kingdom, and the Lower Kingdom was victorious. The Lower Kingdom being the kingdom that's south of the Nile and not near the coast. The Upper Kingdom was the one that lost, and there was a full-blown war. Like there was
Okay, so
armies.
what does that
It
mean?
means they had organized men in armies fighting major battles, decisive battles right there, and it was all done within like 10, 20 years max. It might have been even so. I don't really want to talk about it too much because I've learned about it before, but I don't remember all the specifics. All I know for sure is that
Yeah,
Lower Egypt beat the shit out of Upper Egypt, and Upper Egypt, the guy basically faded into obscurity.
And that happens a
you're
lot in
just like,
Egyptian
oh,
culture.
It
When
does.
when
yeah,
a when the
uh-huh,
winning force wants to get rid of anything that the losing force ever had.
Mhm.
yeah,
I
yeah.
I I would
That's
like to digress because we're kind of just getting into the philosophical talk on like what is war,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of getting away from like Mesopotamia and like
Yeah.
all that
Okay.
stuff. So
yeah. I just think that what you said right there about Egypt, I would say that that is like maybe the first organized war, but I would still say that these conflicts and stuff between city states, because if we're taking the city states, we're saying that Mesopotamia is not united.
No,
oh
Like
no,
it's
they're
it's a
all
region,
they're
not a
yeah,
nation.
it's a region, not a nation. So that means that these cities are, in a sense, nations of themselves, and then these nations are fighting each other. I would classify that as a war, but I can understand how people wouldn't classify it as war. But we'll just move on from there. And is there anything you guys took notes?
yeah.
I didn't.
I was
So
gonna.
you want to
I
kind of
actually
just
didn't
go
take
on and
notes.
be like,
I learned as much from YouTube and scholarly articles.
Good job,
like
bud.
I was reading
Thank you,
things,
Google
and
Docs.
then the dude, honestly, like I was reading I read that one Smithsonian book, and then I read some articles online, and then I was going to some websites and
Well,
stuff,
actually,
and that was all before the weekend. And then the weekend happened, and it was just like
Um,
busy, busy,
oh
busy,
my
busy,
god.
as it
I was
always
eating
is.
lunch like an hour ago. I just pulled up YouTube for a bit and watched a video from Crash Course John Green.
Ah, that's what I
Shout
should
out
have
to
done.
that
Why did I
guy.
not watch
Shout
it?
out to,
Real
I should have
genius.
watched Crash Course.
but
That'd be
I
like
probably spent
but
our
let's.
homework.
I
Oh,
spent
I'm
like
sorry.
6 or 8 hours researching this, maybe a
Good
little bit
job.
more. But
Good
anyways,
job.
I was actually gonna build on the war thing that you were talking
Way to
about.
be
Well,
responsible.
okay, can real quick, we're almost hitting at the 1 hour mark. I would like for us to quickly close the subject of war because I want to get into laws.
Laws.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Ooh,
Yeah, I think war is. I think we've said our piece on it and what we think of it, and I think that yeah, whatever you guys. That was basically everything I wanted to talk about. So I'm gonna kind of like give the reins over to you guys right now, and kind of work off that. So whoever would like to go
do you
first on
do you
whatever you
want to
want
Uh,
to
talk
talk
about
about.
Babylonian laws, or do you want to go to
I
the
want to get
Akkadians?
into the subject of Hammurabi.
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 Okay.
We Hammurabi will be. I'm pretty sure he was the sixth king uh, of the first Babylonian dynasty. At least that's what I vaguely remember from the Wikipedia article. And
Scholar.
Hammurabi um, would go on to conquer Elam and the city states of Larsa, Ashana, and Mari. And this is a pretty big thing for a king to do, at least for a Mesopotamian king in the year of 1792 through about 1750. Sorry, yeah, he would reign from 1792 to 1750. This is a pretty big thing for someone of this time to do. And like I said, what he does is that he conquers these city states. And these city states, even before him, had laws and such. But Hammurabi is the first one. Yeah, Hammurabi is the first one to really put the idea of eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth law into effect.
Mhm.
And
Oh
the
heck
the
yeah.
big thing that he did, I just want to add this in real quick, is that he wrote them all down and they
yeah,
survived. That's
mhm.
why we know about them.
So um, we could put a little quick hypothetical, which is what I learned, but
Okay.
from the crash course video was let's say a builder makes a building and it's not structurally sound for a trader, and the trader's doing his thing or whatever. He walks out, the fucking building collapses, and his son was unfortunately in the building, and the building from collapsing killed his son. Hammurabi would, if let's say like they bring him to Hammurabi for him to decide, Hammurabi will basically says, well, the builder's son has to die now, even if the son had nothing to do with the building of that structure. So
Someone had to
someone
pay.
always had to pay
An eye for an eye. That's
a
the way
tooth
it
for a
works.
tooth.
Yes.
So that was Hammurabi's way of
Yikes.
thinking, and we just see I wouldn't say necessarily an explosion, but we just see the culture of Sumeria. I wouldn't say change overnight, but this is definitely attributes a lot into the Middle Eastern culture. Middle East is, excuse me if I'm wrong, is still huge on execution and public
Yeah.
and public
Like
yeah,
execution
yeah.
stuff,
Like
like
a good
killings.
example of the laws that you're trying to say
Mm,
echo into modern day
yeah,
is like with thieves, how they will cut off the
thieves.
hands of thieves
They will
still.
cut off the hands of thieves.
Well, what I was thinking of was I think it was in Iran, of course, because Iran's just the hot topic now. It's like we're back in the 80s or
Mhm.
whatever. But there was this wrestler or something like this really prominent wrestler. He's like 20 something, I don't know, mid 20s, and they were having like these protests or something. I can't remember, like a year or two ago, but he was, they said that he was there and like he led them or something, and then of course he's like, no I wasn't, and his lawyers were like, no he wasn't, and the rest of the world was like, no he wasn't, like he might have been there but he definitely wasn't leading anyone, and or something like that, but he definitely was like anti whatever regime is in control of Iran right now, and they publicly executed him like only a couple weeks ago, and it was just like they still do that stuff, and they still do kind of like this law. What'd you say the name of the law was
Eye
again?
for
It's
an eye, tooth for a tooth.
yeah, the eye for an eye thing. It's like that's not literally like he killed someone, so we're gonna kill you, but it's still kind of
Yeah.
like that
I
whole of we're gonna be in control and we're gonna come down
I think
swiftly.
you're thinking of more of like an imperialistic or a kingship way of ruling with like totalitarian control, and you might be confusing that a little bit because if it was kind of like Maharabi's law, then for him speaking ill of the regime, Maharabi would have probably cut out his tongue.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I just meant more of that like
A hard,
kind of
harsh
ruthless,
punishment.
the yeah, very harsh, very ruthless, very primitive, really, form of punishment with their laws and things like that.
I mean, we yeah, primitive in a way, yes, but was
In a
was it
way,
effective? I no doubt in my mind was it effective.
Oh yeah,
oh, definitely. And there's even way to you could argue that it's not really primitive at all because most other places during this time didn't have laws, at least that we know of. They were just
It
kind
was
of
more of this understand like there it was this understanding throughout the rest of the world that if you were to do something bad will happen to you. It was really the first
yeah,
time we have a king here who's going to outline everything and say you do this, say you do you say sorry you do y, sorry yeah, if you do y then x is going to happen to you.
yeah,
yeah, uh-huh.
direct correlation to your actions.
Yep.
Um, I
Yeah.
just want to
So
bring up, since we're talking about this, one thing that I learned about from Mesopotamia that really surprised me, and I should have known it, was they were the first ones to create an empire.
Mm.
And me, loving Rome, loving the imperial age, I was shocked to see that they were the first ones. They didn't do it very well, but hey, they're first, so you can't
We
really judge them too hard.
was it the the Acadians would be
Yes,
first.
they were
So
like above the Northern River. I can't remember what it was called.
I'm pretty sure is it I can't remember which is north, Tigris or Euphrates. I
I
feel like it's Euphrates.
yeah, I should have just had a map in front of me because like no, these they were the first ones to actually get together. The city states came together, like three or four of them, and they were like, "Hey, I'm tired of like constantly fighting everybody, so let's form a coalition and protect ourselves through our combined strength." And a really interesting thing that you don't see a lot throughout history is they started making their own professional army, and they would appoint generals based on merit. They had a meritocracy for
Except, yeah, yes. I learned about this as well. But go ahead, real quick.
yeah, yeah. But anyway, so they had a meritocracy, which is something you do not see a lot of the time in the future when it comes to generals, appointments, or leading officials. It's usually just who has the most money, or who has the most land, or who has the most power or birthright. So they had these
Yeah.
generals that were appointed through meritocracy, and they were really good, and they were like they were the predecessor to the Assyrian Empire, which would come around a couple hundred years after they fell
And,
apart.
and the
But
Syrians would come and they would attribute
yeah, that's
to
what
the
I
destruction of the Acadians.
yeah I that's what I want to get to more of is when we really see Mesopotamia take off and become kind of a juggernaut of the world and a power is around the time period of like the 900s through the 600 BC. And I just want to state that during this time period, it there was a power vacuum. There was just this great collapse. You have the Greek Dark Ages. You have the fall of Egypt and its decline again after the new Egyptian age with Ramses II. So you have this giant power vacuum on the world stage. And over here in Mesopotamia, they've been constantly fighting forever, but somehow someone comes together. I can't remember which one did it. Bobby, get the fuck off my notes, you fat fucking cat. But, anyways, what's good taking notes if cat's gonna lay on them? But anyways, so they come together and they start forging an empire again, and they have these threats on either side. Still, you have Elam, still this ancient power over across the Persian Gulf, and you have, I think, the Uratus. You have the Uratu civilization to the north, and above them, you have the Sicilians, who are horseback people, basically like kind of nomads, kind of like the Huns, but not 100% the Huns, because those would be hundreds of years later. So you have this empire forming here out of all of this turmoil, and it becomes during the dark age of the rest of the world when Greece has fallen, the Mycenaeans are gone, Egypt is no longer holding its power. They refit their army and train and arm the best army the world had ever seen at that time. And they just go on victory after victory after victory, which leads to a rise in their religion and a sort of doomsday prophecy that if they were to lose, it would be
Mm.
the end of the world, which
and
was
and
cool.
and I learned about this as well. Is that eventually they did lose a battle. The city of I believe it starts with an N. I can't remember, but the city was reconquered by the Assyrians, and the Akkadian Empire just crumbled immediately.
Yeah, it
Oh,
just
really?
fell apart like overnight, basically. Like it just disintegrated because they lost a battle.
I guess, yeah, if you keep telling everyone that, hey, if we lose, it's all over, even if it's not really all over right when you lose. I mean, you've kind of like, you keep saying the thing is going to happen. People are just going to be like, well, that's it. We're done,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I did a quick fact check, and I think it's the Tigris that's above the
Tigris is above.
Euphrates. That's the
Okay.
one.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because they kind of run parallel
Yeah.
to each other. So I guess if you're talking about if you're talking about like what's north of whatever, the Euphrates does kind of go up northerner or more north than the Tigris. But if you're like saying like which is more above one another for the most part, the Tigris is above the Euphrates for the
Yeah.
most
Okay.
part. But if you're talking about which is most north, the Euphrates does go farther.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. All right. So this happened, and the Assyrian Empire, when all of this is happening, wasn't really an empire, but Assyria had
No.
been around for a while, since like the 1100s
Mm-hmm.
when it was founded. But it had the Hittites on the north. There we go. The Babylonians to the south, and the Elam across the water. And then you also had Judea at the time, which was they were
It would be the
they
well.
they were
Go
forced to
ahead.
be reckoned with. It wasn't Judea; it was Israelites, and then there
The
was
Israelites.
tribes.
And now um and then sorry, not to get away from it. Then Nebuchadnezzar comes and Judea is ultimately subjugated.
Yes, like
So
that. This is But for when it comes to the Assyrians, this is the world stage that they were in. They were basically surrounded on all sides by these foreign powers, by these powers of the day. But they ended up, after the Hittites were also one of the great powers that fell during the Dark Ages, they beat the Babylonians and took over Babylonia. And the Babylonians could kind of be, they were troublemakers. They did not like being ruled. They
no.
were always starting shit. They were always revolting, and they were always discontented with the Assyrian rule, even if they had their own, like a person from Babylon appointed as ruler of the city. They were still unhappy that the Assyrians were in charge. So there's actually, I think this is before the time of Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar would come around like 600 something BC.
Yeah, yeah. So um, Babylon was actually destroyed because the leader of Assyria at the time, let's see. Oh no. That's way later. I want to talk about the Israelis first. Did you guys learn anything about the
I
Israelis in the
I
war?
mainly know I mainly know the Israelis from the Bible and a lot about the Philistines and stuff like that.
That is
Um,
actually
Yeah, that's where my knowledge comes from. Is just the things in the Bible around this time. That's what I know. Everything else,
well,
I've kind of already
that
said
they
it.
actually use it as a historical reference a lot. They don't look at the Bible as an actual historical text per se, 100%, but there's a lot of
Well,
stuff
yeah.
that lines up. Like when Sennacherib besieged the city of Israel because the Israelis and I think 10 other lords revolted against the Assyrians. So he went in there, Sennacherib, and he was hellbent. He was pissed off. He was going to kill everybody, which was generally the Assyrian way. Like, they were very cruel people. Like, very, like, anything you've heard throughout history, they were probably the ones that invented it and did it first. Like,
I mean, one person says cruel, the other person might say they're just a little more
Levi,
strict. You know.
Vlad the Impaler.
yes, Vlad Empire. I can't do a Transylvanian accent.
Hey,
Levi, Who's Vlad the
Well,
Impaler, Levi?
Vlad the Impaler is in his own. I will say this real quick. If Vlad the Impaler is in his, like, compare him to other dictators, what have you, other emperors, other kings. Like, we can go on for days and how now Vlad is this kind of tiny dude or whatever compared to like Julius Caesar. But by God, is Vlad the Impaler in his own fucking bracket compared to anybody else.
You're saying we need like a holiday special, Vlad the
We need a
Impaler.
holiday special. We can. Hey,
Holiday
hey, hey,
special.
and a lot of a lot of the origin, the myths and origin of Dracula come from Vlad the Impaler. So maybe we could use Vlad for a Halloween special.
Yeah, ooh.
I'm actually like posting this. Like I'm making a note of
Yeah.
this right now,
So
mid show.
Vlad
Like Vlad the
could be our
Impaler,
Halloween special.
Yeah.
maybe
Well,
Halloween. I like it. I
Levi, I
like it.
just
All
want
right,
you
you
to outline what he would do to prisoners real quick.
Oh,
'Cause I'm
oh,
gonna
oh!
go
You
into what
want
the
to?
Assyrians
Oh,
did.
oh, you do. Well, most notably, the reason why he was called the Impaler is because he would love to impale people from forcing a sharpened wooden pole spike through their
mm-hmm,
rectal
mm-hmm.
region, through either
I
their
knew it.
chest or their head,
I
and
knew it.
sometimes the victim would be alive through the
How
process.
did I
It's the
know?
good old shish kebab.
So
I was trying to think like, okay, he's called the Impaler, but like that's a pretty iconic name. You don't really get that from
So
like maybe
that's
like
what he
ear to
liked to do.
ear.
He liked to put people on spikes,
Put it up the
not just
bum.
their heads, the whole body,
No, no, the
Yeah.
whole
the whole
thing.
body.
Yeah, no, I respect that.
So
Easy. You're gonna do the whole thing,
yeah.
mate.
So that's
All
what he
right.
did, and he's notorious for it. I can't believe I have never heard of the Assyrians with how cruel they were. They would first torture the people that they conquered. Even if you surrender, like it's basically better to fight and die than to surrender to them. Because first they would cut off your nose, cut off your
Oh,
ear,
they love doing that. They love doing. Oh yeah.
yeah, just mutilation, and then while you're still alive, they would put you on a spike sometimes. They would mostly do it through the head though, or like through the middle of the chest to kill you. And then they'd also lob off heads, put them on pole spikes. Their whole thing was to rule through fear. They were the epitome of rule through fear.
And the difference between
Hey,
let's make a quick distinction between Vlad and that. Vlad's whole idea, like it was a fear tactic, but Vlad did it for his own personal enjoyment, and he did it because he knew that his enemies hated it.
yeah.
So,
That's true. There's
Okay.
nothing.
and we could say that about these series as well. But my main
Yeah,
thing is that
you just can't confirm it with the Syrians.
Vlad did it purely out of hatred for his enemies.
Vlad was more of a
Yes,
psychopath.
and we can get into Vlad later. We can get into Vlad later, but the
Yeah,
Assyrians did this to rule the basically rule the people. Because I mean, let's say
Yeah.
you're an average person in an Assyrian city at the time. You walk around,
I'm
you
just
go to the market square, you see fucking like four people you saw yesterday. Their heads have been cut off and been put on spikes, and they're parading them around the market square. Like
dude,
your
I'm
ass
just
ain't gonna have any thoughts of wanting to rebel after that.
my wife was like, "Oh, go get the corn,"
Yeah,
and I'm like, "Okay." I'm gonna walk down to the market and get the corn, and then, oh, look, another corpse on a spike. How fun! He's missing his nose. That's
yeah.
exactly.
fantastic.
So
Yeah, just things like that. I mean, I get that. That is the rule by fear thing is throughout time very effective because people are scared, and when they get scared, they get submissive, and like it does make rebellions
mhm.
sometimes. But when you are so
Not to mention
strong
people
and
people have to worry about their people have to worry about their families. They weren't afraid to go after
yeah, that
children as well.
Oh yeah.
Let's make that clear
yeah,
as well.
Oh yeah. When they would conquer people, they would kill the women and children too. They would burn them
oh yeah.
alive while the men were still alive.
It reminds me a lot of the Mongolians. I read about how that's what they kind of did when they were on their whole conquering quest.
Mhm,
That they would just come into villages. They didn't care who you were. They were going to kill you all to show everyone like, don't mess with us. Don't fight back because you will lose.
mhm.
So that's just what it reminded me of vaguely. I can't really think of anything else. I don't remember George Washington parading through like Nebraska and
Well,
murdering
Nebraska wouldn't have
natives.
been a state yet, but
Yeah, the Nebraska area or
yeah.
whatever. Maybe they cut that out of the textbooks, but I remember that happening.
But we're also looking at two different time periods here. We're
Oh
looking at it,
Oh
the age of reason and complete utter ancient warfare.
yeah, and
That's not
honestly,
going to hold
like
back.
I don't even know if I could like be disappointed, I guess is the way to say it. It's weird to say disappointed. I can't really think of another word for it right now. But like back then, how else do you rule? Because yeah, you could rule just be like, hey, I'm your king. Um, you guys do your thing, but we're in charge. Because eventually people are going to be like, well, why? That's stupid. Like, why are you in charge? What are you doing for us? Us citizens, we can trade food ourselves. We can do this ourselves. We don't really need you. But when you start going around and be like, all right, I need to find a way to really control these people. And sure, there were other ways to do it, but like the rule through fear way was obviously very effective. And like I couldn't really think of being in that situation. I don't know what else I would do if I wanted to like really rule over the people and really show everyone like I'm in charge. Like I'm not sure what other ways you could do
I would
back.
like to add though that most kings early on, most rulers in Assyria early on were harsh like that indiscriminatorily to like both domestic and foreign people. But later on, when you start getting these dynasties forming, you start seeing some semblance of like, well, I do this and I will show compassion towards my people. I will take care of my people. I will make sure they have food, they have housing, they have a job. Like they show that I will only be this way when I need to be. I am not going to be a cruel leader to my own
Mhm.
people, which is a big distinction because a lot of times through history, there is just cruel leaders and they are cruel
Yeah,
indiscriminately.
they're not doing this to just random like, all right guys, it's Thursday night, let's go pick 10 people to go
Which is
skewer.
it's happened a lot through history. People are just like that guy there, dead.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Sucks to suck, but no, I could like, yeah, but I mean, like we can see how the average person, man, woman, or most notably kid, would be horrified and terrified of
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
of
definitely. Yeah.
this. And like, let's take this into account. Like, once they're conquered, like, where's the military at? Their military's gone. Like, they can't really protect themselves.
Exactly.
And I hate to say this, it's terrible to say, but they had to roll with the punches.
Yeah, honestly, just back then it's like you got to do what you got to
Yo, the
do.
world is not a gentle place.
No, and it wasn't. It
At
was
least
gentle
back then
before. It was, well, yeah.
I think it's not too bad for quite a bit of people now. I mean, you can go over to China and they still got concentration camps and stuff like that, or you go to the Middle East where they're still publicly
Well, I hope
executing
you know,
people. But
Andrew, you have successfully banned this podcast from
Yeah,
China.
not a lot of China. I was gonna say earlier, like, ooh, this is gonna be rough to get like anybody of Middle Eastern descent to listen to this podcast with how we're kind of ragging on the Middle East a bit with it.
But we're not. We're talking about the ancient. We're talking about their ancient history, which is
Yeah, but
very interesting.
Andrew's got to be over here, be politically correct, and make a statement against China. Oh,
Hey, but do we
yeah,
really? Hey, do we really care?
honestly, Tiananmen
look,
Square, man. You know.
Oh no! But
China great. Like, okay, I don't know if China was ever great, but like they make our phones, so they're look. China's cool. Maybe they have some concentration camps, yes. Maybe they
oh
are
Hey,
no!
let's not derail this. Let's
That's
not
not the.
derail this from what this is. We can have a modernist talk on another
they
time.
starve their citizens?
But
Maybe. I'm not one to say yes, but I'm not gonna say no. That's all I'm saying. China is a lovely place for the animals, I hear. Actually, it's not.
all
It's
right,
like the
all right, all
highest.
right.
Bruh,
Let's
you
get
are
out of it.
derailing this so bad.
Let's get out of this subject
Yeah.
on China.
Anyways,
So,
so I just wanted to state that because there's something from the Bible that both of you know about, and that's Hezekiah. Um, Hezekiah, and when the angel came and sent the Assyrians away and came through and killed like 175,000 men, and that's what a lot of people understand as to what happened. But a lot of historians say like, yeah, no, that's kind of a really big stretch. Like there was like 5,000 men dead, and there was something in the country drawing them away. But there's grains of truth in the Bible. You just can't take it verbatim. when it comes to looking at it historically.
But I
Yeah.
will say that the Bible does offer a lot of knowledge as to where these places were and what happened. It gives us an idea of
Yeah,
it gives us insight
it gives us
into
nice context.
into their realm,
Yeah.
and where and how they live. Sorry, and where they lived and what was going on. And
And I've already alienated the Chinese and Iranians, so I might as well alienate the Christians too. But whenever we look at anything in the Bible that has to do with history and how things played out in history, I feel like, well, actually, this isn't just the Bible; it's really anything throughout history. Even now, when you're reading about current events and
Taking
things,
some
you
big
have to
swings
take
here, aren't you?
everything. Well, you have to take everything with a grain of salt because there's always a bias happening. There's always a perspective that they want you to see, and you really have to like look at everything. You can't take anything for face value truth, especially with the Bible and like things that were happening in this time in this region.
that
Yes.
is, yeah. Um, one thing I do want to get into is probably one of the last of the Mesopotamian
Hmm.
rulers, Nebuchadnezzar, or
Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar the second, but we just call him Nebuchadnezzar because he was Nebuchadnezzar. And what does Nebuchadnezzar do, and what is he famous for? Well, he conquers Jerusalem, I believe,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
the reason why he does this is Nebuchadnezzar is a very first and foremost, let's look at let's go back to the foundations of Mesopotamia real fast, and and throughout its time period, we see a general change shift of power from people ultimately worshiping gods, and that is how they get their laws and such, to people being ruled by but people being ruled by kings.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of this shift of people starting to believe what the king does. Not saying that they become non-religious, but their rulers now is the king. Their laws they get is from the king, and Nebuchadnezzar comes into play here because he thinks very highly of himself. He is a very
Oh.
narcissistic man, and he's not like Xerxes, but he is very he's very up. He has a huge ego, but he can back this up because Babylon at this time in 600 BC time is very strong. They've regained their strength. They're very wealthy, and Nebuchadnezzar he can back all this up. So he goes to Jerusalem. He wants Jerusalem. He sees it as a prize, and he wants it. Now Nebuchadnezzar he's not he he's like a lot of ancient rulers at the time, but he does something that not a whole lot of them would ever think of, and that he sends a message. I believe the king of the Israelites at the time was Zedekiah, and he sends a message saying that if they surrender, no one will be harmed, and that's it. However, but so and in the and in the and, sorry and in the Bible story, I believe the priest also received a message from God saying that if you give the city to Nebuchadnezzar, he will make good on his word. Like God has told me that Nebuchadnezzar will make good on his word. That if you do this, Zedekiah doesn't believe this. Zedekiah is quite prideful, and he is the king of the Israelites. The Israelites have had a really troubled past. They've been looking for a homeland, and now they have secured it. So to give that away is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And Zedekiah doesn't do this. In fact, Zedekiah um, uh, um, prolongs the siege of the city. Nebuchadnezzar is furious, and eventually Nebuchadnezzar takes Jerusalem, and all hell is brought upon the Israelis. It is utterly destructive. The wrath of Nebuchadnezzar comes on unto them. And as Zedekiah and his sons were trying to escape from the city, they are caught. I know that a lot of plays and some TV show movie adaptations were portrayed as, oh, it was Nebuchadnezzar himself who caught Zedekiah. I don't know the real
I don't
specifics of it,
think it actually was.
but let's just say that Zedekiah and his sons were brought to Nebuchadnezzar. They were captured and brought to Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar had Zedekiah's sons killed, and Nebuchadnezzar blinded Zedekiah with his thumbs, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Do you understand,
I
Matthew?
think I know what you mean by.
You know when you put your thumbs over somebody's eyes and you press in?
Yeah, no, I exactly know what that
Well,
means.
Yeah, so he
this
blinded
is a
him,
The
PG.
good old
Zedekiah.
This is a
pop.
PG show.
And what Nebuchadnezzar does then, because of this, he views the Israelis as a people that will never, because of this insolence of Zedekiah, he sees it as insolence and for not giving him what he wants. Take in mind,
Mhm.
this is the wealthiest king in the world at this time. Nebuchadnezzar, you tell Nebuchadnezzar, well, that's not possible. He will look at you. What the hell do you mean it's not possible? I can pay for it. It can be done.
Yeah, money bags can never.
he's the he's the apple
Yeah,
of the
he is.
of that.
Yeah, he's the richest king at this time. So, of course, there's also the famous story of how he sent, like, I think it was like 4 or 3 Israelis to be burned, and they never burned, or something like that. I can.
Yeah, I think I know what
Yeah,
you're talking about. It's something around.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The whole when he threw all of those Christians, no, not Christians, Israelis, into
Any
the
man,
fire.
the people who did not bow to him, like the
Yeah,
Israelis that did not bow to him, he threw into a fire and they
yeah,
didn't burn.
yeah.
Um, so that really shows his character. Like I said before, Nebuchadnezzar,
It's got,
it was a very narcissistic, very uh, egotistic person, and he was very flaunting with his wealth, such as the gardens of Babylon. He built that for his wife because she loved oases and such. So he had them built for her. So that really just shows I know, like, this, how does any of that with what I said portray to Mesopotamia? It really portrays how far has Mesopotamia come with these city states becoming such huge powers, and how they have garnished such wealth, and how their eventual downfall came to happen.
yeah. I just going off of what you were talking about. Nebuchadnezzar was like between the 6th and 5th century BC, I think.
Mm,
That's when he was arrived. And what's really amazing about Babylon's power there and Nebuchadnezzar's power and riches there is just a century or so before, the city was destroyed, like
mm,
burnt to the ground. The king, um, I think it was Sargon the second, attacked Babylon because it was revolting. And the person in charge of Babylon at that time was his son, and they executed his son. So he went complete, like, destruction mode. He ripped down all their buildings, all their ziggurats. He dug canals, flooded everything, washed away the foundations. He destroyed the city completely. And that's just, I also want to say this is to the resilience of a lot of the Mesopotamian societies and a lot of the city states in there. A century later, you have Nebuchadnezzar, who beats the Israelis, who puts Assyria back in its place, who basically is conquering all of the Middle East at that time. The man, it's astounding how quickly things can change.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But eventually, as we all know, Nebuchadnezzar power fades, and of course, in 513 BC, Cyrus the Great of Persia conquers Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is we're about an hour and a half through this, and as long as a 7-hour podcast would be awesome.
No.
I don't think too many people will listen
No, I
that
don't
long,
think
but
they
I
will.
think 2 hours is definitely like good.
The-
So that was good right
Alright.
there. I didn't know much of any of that. That's why I really wasn't chiming in at all because, um, like I said, we've already gone over everything I
Gotta
know.
do more
But
research.
maybe if you guys, you're right. Next time, I'm gonna really have to. I didn't know what to expect for this podcast, even though I'm the one that was like, "Hey, we should do this." Like, I didn't know to what extent you guys were going to go into this. I now see what extent you guys are going to go into this. So I'll definitely
I took work off
episode.
today to do this for you.
Yeah,
um,
yeah. So you guys took
can
this to
can
the
I
next level.
can I just give some free publicity for a quick podcast for a different quick podcast just real quick. There is a
Um,
sorry, so just real quick.
no,
Okay.
go ahead.
There is a really cool podcast. I have yet to listen to all of it, but it is like 5 hours long, or at least on YouTube, it's like 5 hours long.
Dear God.
And it is called the Genocide of the Celts, and it is very interesting. And I think if we want to be a history podcast, then we should all probably at least listen to at least an hour of it and just kind of learn from it.
Yeah, I do learn a little more. Well, I definitely plan on doing that after seeing the amount of information you guys got. But
It is called the
what I wanted
Genocide of the Celts. That it does
genocide.
of the
But
Celts.
according to Romans, like genocide
Okay, Matthew, come on,
See,
is just as usual.
this is what he's gonna do every time. He's gonna be like, "Oh well, actually, is it though?" And like, see, I want to give you guys the chance because I know you took so many notes down, and I'm sure you guys haven't gone through any of it or all of it yet. If there's like one, maybe two quick
I'm-
things that you want to touch up upon before we end this, because I don't want to just like be like, "Okay, we're done," and then you
So
guys are like,
let's take a let's just make a broad thesis statement here. What was Mesopotamia?
A
well,
bunch of quarreling
I
city
think
states.
yeah, I think right now what we're saying is Mesopotamia was an area that happened or that came together 5,000 years ago, something like that. I can't even remember anymore. A long time ago. And it was around for thousands of years. And it wasn't a country, it was more a bunch of smaller city states combined into one area. Is that correct?
I would accept that.
Yeah, that's
You would
very
accept?
generalized and broad. But
I
yeah,
would I would I
Oh,
would
definitely.
say it like this. This is my answer. Is that Mesopotamia is an ancient culture that was responsible for the society of today.
Definitely, yeah. From
yeah.
what I've read and also heard from you guys, it seems like this culture is the one that kickstarted all of their cultures. It was like it was the layout work for everything else that would build and expand upon it.
Yeah, I'd say that it is the culture that led Europe and Western society down the path it is on today. Not even the Egyptians really like directed us towards this path. It was the cultures of the Tigris and River, the Tigris River and the Euphrates
Yeah.
that led us down this path. All those city states.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So, is there anything else you guys want to
There's
touch
really
up
nothing else
upon?
that I want to talk about.
You guys got you got everything that you want to talk
Yeah.
about out there?
Yeah.
All right, Matthew, is there anything else that I know you took a lot of notes? You said you had pages
I
of
did.
notes.
I did my research. Like, don't you do that to me. I wanted to
No, I
learn.
know.
I learned.
That's why I'm saying, like, is there anything else that you want to talk about? Because even if we don't know about it, like, I haven't known about this last hour of stuff, but I've been able to add to the conversation and I'm learning from it too. So, is there anything else that you want to talk about?
I mean, the other things that I didn't really touch on a bit are like minor things throughout the whole thing. Like the whole reason that Babylon rose in the first place is because there was a guy that tried to use their power, ran off to Elam during one reign. That guy who was in charge of the Assyrians died. The guy came back from Elam and he did all the stuff in Babylon. And then the Assyrians, this is when the Assyrian Empire fell, is when they went and tried to attack the nation of Elam. And they're like, we're going to get the jump on them. We're going to do a pro gamer move and we're going to attack them without them knowing. Joke's on
Oh,
them.
I like
They
it.
were prepared and they beat the shit out of them. And that's when it all fell apart and
So
out the way.
So, just one quick question, Andrew. Since you were head tech guy of this, you will be doing all the editing and such.
Tech boy.
Tech boy. Where will this podcast be posted to?
So that's a great question. Obviously, if you're listening to it right now, it's posted wherever you're listening it to. But my plan is to have this posted first and foremost on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/that one Andrew, THATONEANDRAW. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload this to podcast services like Google
Okay.
Play, or Google Podcast, not Google Play. iTunes, obviously. Um, I'm gonna try to get it on SoundCloud. I'm gonna try to get it
I'm
on
gonna put
Podbean.
it on
You,
SoundCloud.
you, you're going to put it on
Literally
Spotify?
anywhere. I'm gonna put it on Spotify.
Yeah.
Anywhere that I can get this podcast accepted to, I'm going to try to post it because I know that there are people that listen to podcasts exclusively on those websites, and they will find our podcast if we post it on there. So I'm going to try to do a just anywhere and everywhere, but definitely for this one. If I can't figure out the others, this is definitely going to be on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and YouTube for sure.
Real quick, do we have a cover art for this?
We do not. That is going to be
Ooh.
in the works. If you guys can think of
I was
things,
I, I
that
was
would be
thinking of something kind of
fantastic.
this is a history podcast. Of course, we're going to be appealing to a certain kind of audience.
Yeah.
They're probably
Yeah.
as boring as we are.
I was gonna suggest I could try to draw something.
Okay.
If you guys want to, so I have actually this is getting a little off topic of the history
I
podcast,
feel like we can
but
edit this stuff
We
out.
should.
Yeah.
Andrew, can you edit this
well,
out?
actually, I think we should keep this all in.
Okay.
Honestly,
I'd say
I don't think it. I think I think if anybody was listening to this at this point, they'd probably just stop.
yeah, they would have left by now.
listen, this is definitely going to be a more like shoot the shits type of history podcast. We're going to come here to learn, but also like, come on. One of the first question was, would you rather be a Russian farmer or a native bee?
Yeah,
Bee
but we
weaver,
talked about why you wouldn't want to be a Russian farmer ever.
But real quick, for anybody that is still listening, I would like to say that my phone's battery percentage is at 69%. So that's what you stayed for. That's the little joke you stayed for.
Yeah, he's saying to hear that his phone battery's on 69%. No, but if you guys can definitely draw any art for the podcast, any cover art, I would like to use the same one for each episode just to make it super easy. But I have all the Adobe files, and then also
Cool.
Susan's aspiring
Oh,
artist,
yeah.
so maybe she can do something with it. I don't know, but definitely if you guys want to do anything about
I
that,
feel like we should just have like maybe a symbol in some like time, like a different kind of like something that's like Times New Roman, but it's not Times New Roman kind of text.
that's not
Not
bad.
no, not nice.
Yeah, and then something with the name on it too. It's a long name, so I'm not sure how well that'll work, but
I feel like
we'll
I
figure
feel like
it
it could be. I feel like we could like also put into like what's it called? I never know. Like it's like when people say the United States, but people just say the U.S.
Are
Like
you
what's
talking about an acronym?
an acronym? Yes, we could just put into an acronym.
out. Oh yeah. Yeah, DTR,
DTR,
history
DTR,
podcast.
history podcast.
DTR. Kind of sounds like DDR, and I'm all about that.
Okay.
Get that RAM.
So yeah, that'll be we'll get that all sorted out. For this one, I honestly was thinking like, is there like a shirtless picture of Levi that I could post for the
Oh
for the
God, no!
Yes.
God, no!
Yes.
in all honesty, I'm probably just gonna look up a copyright-free map of Mesopotamia and have that as the first one.
Okay.
Just like I don't know what else to put. I don't know,
Okay.
and I plan on uploading this tonight. So yeah, we'll see about all that. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about? Want to get off your chest about
I say
Mesopotamia?
we should think about what our next subject will be.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's coming right after.
I,
So how the end of the episode will work usually is that first we're going to be talking about all these cultures and all these different civilizations. I thought it would be fun if we rank them on how favorite if we rank them basically, like if they're our favorite ones, if we find them super interesting, if we thought they were really cool, if they're really strong, whatever reason that you think they should be number one in the rank. I thought that'd be cool. Obviously, for this one, we only have one nation, so number one right now is Mesopotamia, just because that's it. Um, but after that, I would like to discuss what you guys think our next topic should be.
Okay.
yeah.
What do you think, Andrew?
What do I think? Oh man, history is big.
History,
There's a lot back
history is big. History
Yeah.
is big.
It's
I
like
can
there's
So,
12,000 years of it.
at least. Who knows? Maybe we'll talk about dinosaurs.
No.
No,
No.
no geology.
Wrong.
T-Rex rabbits. No, we won't do that. This is human history. The cultures that I'm most interested in, honestly, are uh, the Japanese,
Okay.
like uh, Shogun era Japanese, the Mongolian Empire.
Mhm.
I'm really interested in that. The Roman Empire because I don't know
Well, we
anything
talked a
about
bit
the
of
Roman
Rome
Empire.
on this one. We can.
We did,
I,
and every time we did, I was
I'm
confused
I'm
and
just
lost. I was
gonna
like, I
say
don't know
for
what
like
you're talking about.
later purposes, for future purposes, I will probably talk about the Romans, even if we're not talking about the Romans, because
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. This is definitely not like a we're talking about this, so you have to talk about this. Like I absolutely implore you to talk about anything and everything that relates to
yeah,
it. Or even if it doesn't relate, like we were talking about Chinese concentration
you
camps, so
you were talking about Chinese concentration camps.
I don't remember that.
You're getting us banned in China.
but
Speed run China bands. It doesn't take much. I'm also interested in like the Mayans and the Aztecs,
Ooh,
those South
yeah.
American and
I'd
Central
be down with the
American
Mayans.
because I don't know much about them either. So those are mine. What do you guys think? What do you
It's just
feel?
general topics, like it's just like any. I mean, like ancient historic Romans, like all the different peoples, Spartans, Greeks, Celts, Germanics, Egyptians. But I don't know. It's been a fat minute since I've gotten to talk about the Revolutionary War. So
The American
the
Revolutionary
American
War?
Revolutionary
I,
War, the
I
only
believe
Revolutionary
I,
War.
I feel. I just want to say
you Revolutionary War.
I feel we should save the Revolutionary War
Mhm,
for a little bit later
mhm,
than right now, like when we really get this established and like get a mojo going, because
mhm.
I feel we can do a lot of alluding to modern times like Andrew likes to do with what's happening now and that. So
Okay.
we should wait, maybe
Well,
we could
We
do
should
that
wait.
like
We should
end
wait
of
after the
October.
election. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was going to say after the election.
Maybe we can give some tips.
let me tell you, Donald Trump is basically George Washington.
Okay,
Uh,
he sure is.
I don't know
But
about
I
that.
also want to. I do want to hold off on Rome too because I know for a fact that is going to be a multi-part episode, and I would like to get episodes out that are topics that are only one
okay.
episode. That way we can
Well, let's
kind of
talk
have.
about Japan on the next episode. Just the general history of Japan next
Yeah,
episode.
I'd be okay with that.
You
Like
guys want to talk
origin
about
story,
Japan?
mythology, and religion.
Samurai, shogunate,
Yes.
and what
I
is
can do
Japan?
this.
And what is Japan today?
I will. I will unload you guys with
Okay.
information. Like 5 months ago, I got an Audible token because that's how Audible works, I guess. You get tokens for redeeming books. But I got this one book that was a history of Japan, and it was like 20, 30 hours long, or maybe even longer, actually. I don't remember. It was hella long, but I listened to all of it, and I was like, okay, I got you. So, yeah, we can do Japan. I'll probably pick a specific time in Japan because it's really, really long. It's it's longer than most people would think, because most people think like, oh, Japan, they were isolated on their island forever. It's like, actually they really weren't. Like, that happened a lot later, and it didn't last long at all. So yeah, we can talk about Japan next. It sounds like a good topic.
All right.
Yosh.
All right, so that's the end of our first inaugural podcast of Doomed to Repeat, a history podcast. um I'm Andrew, your host, and Matthew and Levi joined me today. Let's start with Matthew. Where could the people find you if they wanted to follow you on social
Oh
media?
man, I don't I don't know about that. I guess they can follow me on Instagram.
Sure. Yeah. What's your
I
Instagram name?
don't know. Could you just put it in a link? I don't have it right now. You expect too much of me. I have these notes for what we're talking about, but I don't have my Instagram.
Levi, where could the people follow
They could
you?
also follow me on Instagram, but I'm in the same boat as Matthew, not because I don't know my Instagram name, but because my Instagram name is very long, and people would rather
No, go ahead.
click on a link than
Oh,
having to type it
what
out.
is your
Exactly.
What is your
Oh
Instagram
no,
name?
My
his is a mess. It's so
it's
hard,
it's Happy Mogar the Hamburglar.
but it's not spelled normally.
I'll go ahead and put the social media link. If you'd like to follow me, the best place to find me is on Twitter, because I am low key addicted to Twitter. That is at that
Oh,
one
low
Andrew,
key
but that's
Loki. Hi,
differently
Loki.
Loki. Like the
on
Nordic.
God.
On God, though.
That's I want to talk about the Nordics sometime too, and all that. We have so much that we're going to talk about in the future. But that's
That'd be a
twitter.com twitter.com/ that one Andrew, but that's spelled THATWONANDREW. It's spelled like that because the that one Andrew is actually taken, and it's been taken for like 10 years, and the dude hasn't tweeted in 8 years. And if you go on there, there's like 15 tweets, and they're all retweets of porn. So don't go to at that one Andrew, go to at that WON Andrew.
I was gonna say you were derailing, but you know what? That's actually a very good thing to tack on the end there.
Honestly,
No,
people could search that up and they'd be very displeased
oh
with what
yeah,
they're
no.
going to say.
I always have to make sure that everyone knows it's WON, because if you go to my name, like, I'm that one Andrew on literally everything except Twitter, and if you go there, you're gonna see some naked ladies. So maybe you're into that. Maybe go to that one Andrew also. Who knows?
All right, so are
But yeah,
we ending the episode?
yep. I think that's it. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I'm thinking we record these on Tuesdays. I think Tuesdays should be good. Matthew, if you work on Tuesdays, maybe we can find some other time to do this. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna try my best to edit this. I don't know if I'm gonna get like every bump, click, whatever out of it, but I'm definitely gonna like sync up the audio, make sure we can hear each other, because I've been watching the thing and I know I'm low. I know my audio is low,
No.
so
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and fix that in post.
Can
Yeah,
hear that?
gotta do that too. Fantastic. But thanks for joining me. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you guys in the next episode.
Have a good day.
Have a
Have a
good
good
day or
week.
night.
Have a good week. Have a good year.
Doomed to Repeat, a history podcast, is recorded in Lawrence, Kansas, Manhattan, Kansas, and Athens, Georgia. It is hosted by me, Andrew Arana. My co-hosts are Matthew Arana and Levi Haviger. You can find us at Instagram.com/Mateo, Mateo _10698. That's for Matthew. You can find Levi at Instagram.com/Habby Mogar the Hamburglar, and that is spelled HABBYMOGARTHEHAMBURglar. I'll go ahead and let him know that he needs to condense that username. That is where you can find Levi. And you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/thatoneandrew. That's that WON Andrew. Doomed to Repeat is edited by me, Andrew. I hope you all enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.